Let's continue with the NBA. Joel Embiid. Sham Charania just reported that he's done for the rest of the season. Do you think it's time for the Philadelphia 76ers once and for all to end the process with Embiid?
It's hard not to say no. It's hard not to say no. Right now, you are in a huge pickle. You have two players on this team that are on the sidelines more than they are on the court. And it seems like at the beginning with Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, it was the process. And after the fact, it just seems like they've just been patchworking the crap out of it. They tried the process with James Harden. They tried the process now with another another star player, that being Paul George. So they just been patchworking it ever since then. The true process was Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. After that, it was just a lot of patchwork. A lot of patchwork. I think it's time. I think that once Joel Embiid gets healthy, I think that, hey, maybe you contact the Sacramento Kings. See if you can get some bonus and a couple first round picks once Joel Embiid gets healthy. Maybe you do that and blow up the process. The process is kind of over at this point. And it was over before Joel Embiid even got hurt. He didn't want to play back to backs, anything of that nature. They did everything that they could. And guess what? They just have never been able to recapture that magic that they captured back in 2001 when Allen Iverson took them to the finals. As far as the championship, they haven't been able to recapture that magic they had back in '83 when Dr. J led them to a championship. It's hard to say that you're going to keep something together when it's not working. You see it's not working. And for me, if you really want to be honest with you, the beginning of the end of the process was when Kawhi hit that shot. That was the beginning of the end. Looking back on it, when Kawhi hit that big shot, that was the beginning of the end. Granted, that fight took a few more rounds in order to end, but guess what? It's ended. And you gotta wonder, man, it's like it's time to break that up. And I don't understand why you had Paul George on there when he could barely stay healthy in Los Angeles. Why would you do that? You bought James Harden to Philadelphia after the debacle that he had in Houston. Him wearing the little suit or whatever that was, and showing up to camp in the games extremely out of shape. You brought him there. The process is over. And for them to keep clinging so tightly to that, it's a shame. I understand that, like I said, I understand that you're trying to put butts in the seats. And the process puts butts in seats. I get it. But are you really, if you keep riding this train, eventually it's going to go off the tracks and it's going to hit somebody. Or even worse, it's going to destroy the whole village. So once Joel Embiid gets healthy, call up the Sacramento Kings, see if you can get Sabonis, maybe a couple first round picks, and ship him off somewhere, because this is not working. And you have building blocks on that team. You got Tyrese Maxey, you got the young rookie that just got hurt that was a shoe-in for the rookie of the year before he got hurt. I think it was Oubre.
I think so.
Yeah, Oubre. But I forget his name. I'm sorry to the audience if I pronounce his name incorrectly. But yeah, you already had great building blocks on this team. Blow up that process and start it over. You got a lot of young players on this team. You need to get rid of these contracts because it's not working. Jared McCain, my bad.
Jeremy Kane. Oh yeah, I forgot
Jared
about him.
McCain. Jared McCain. Thanks, Harrison. Thanks, Harry. But Jared McCain. But Yeah, it's time to break that up, man. It's a done deal. You can't, just because you keep making a mistake, just because. Let me rephrase this. Philadelphia. This is from me to you, from down here in Georgia. I'm going to quote the late great Al Davis. It is not important to be consistent. It is not. It is important to be right in your consistency. Why be consistent to mediocrity just because you've been doing it for so long? It's not important to be consistent. It's important to be right. So be right in your assessment. Blow up this so-called process because it's been over for a long time now. And let's just get it over with. Don't make your fans suffer because you want to be stubborn. Don't copy the same formula that the Cleveland Browns have been doing with Deshaun Watson. Don't do that. You're making the fans suffer and you're making the product suffer. Don't do that just because you feel like clinging to something. That's not good.
All right. Before I give out my opinion, big ups to our special guest in the building, Brandon from the block. Please go check out his podcast, man, on YouTube. Brandon, how you doing, brother?
Doing good. Good, man. Chilling. You know, it's really
Was
it.
that what's happening, man? What's your thoughts about Embiid? Joel Embiid. He's out, ruled out for the remainder of the season. Do you think it's time for Philadelphia to blow the process?
Not only blow up the process, I ain't gonna lie. We might have to have some talks about this man. Joel Embiid might need to retire, bro. I'm not gonna lie, cause these injuries are just that it's just crazy with dude. It's just crazy. Like this, like third consecutive time he's been hurt. Like
I think it's the
for a season.
meniscus. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm saying, like, don't get me wrong, Embiid is great. When healthy, he's a top 10 player. But like, dude, like these injuries is just piling up and piling up and piling up. You don't want to end up like Kawhi. Like how Kawhi Leonard is like, not like he's playing too, but like he ain't playing like the Kawhi Leonard that we all know. So yeah, man, we might have to have some talks about Joel Embiid, um, for get might be to retire, and just like we did with Kawhi, cause Kawhi's been having some talks too. So
Here's my thing regarding is about the whole Joel Embiid situation. The 76ers knew exactly what they were getting themselves into when they drafted him with the third overall pick. Had it not been for injuries, he would have been the number one overall pick back in that 2014 NBA draft. And with Joel Embiid, Champ, to your point, you brought up the beginning of the end for the Philadelphia 76ers was the Kawhi Leonard Game 7 shot in the conference semifinals. Because after that game, Joel Embiid, man, he was walking into the locker room crying. I mean, what was worse, in my opinion, Champ, Atlanta, Game 7, the Ben Simmons game. So, I mean, no one will ever forget that. And shout out to BRF Sports because we all know he's a diehard Atlanta Falcons fan. He said it right here. They said Atlanta has the second best chances of getting him in the trade, just like bringing in someone who might be past his best days. I'll be back next week. But speaking of Atlanta, that series, when Ben Simmons passed up the shot in which Trae Young was in his way. For those who may not know, Ben Simmons is a legit 6'10", 240. Trae Young is about 6'1", 160. When that's really a stretch. He's really more like 5'11", a buck 50-ish like myself. Smaller but skinny dude. When Ben Simmons passed up that shot, it was about it. And Joel Embiid, he's had multiple times of getting to at least to one conference finals or more. And unfortunately, he hasn't. Injuries have played a role in Joel Embiid's career. Interesting thing that Brandon brought up. Should Joel Embiid consider retiring? Because you've been in the NBA for 11 years. But the 76ers, they paid him a ton of money, and it hasn't been a great season for Embiid because remember, there were reports of him getting into it with the reporter, not to mention the report from Sham Charania in which Tyrese Maxey did call out Joel Embiid for his lack of professionalism. Champ, remember when we talked about that? Being always late for everything. So that is on Joel Embiid as far as his lack of professionalism. And look, Shannon Sharp has often called out Joel Embiid for being a professional athlete. You have to be in shape and in condition. And look, we've constantly criticized a lot of athletes. We criticize Luka, we criticize Zion with his weight and conditioning. Joel Embiid, man, I don't want him to retire, but I do think it's time for a change. He needs to go somewhere. But the question is, who's willing to take a risk on a guy who can give you great production, who, when healthy, can give you 30 and 10, but at the same time, with those risks with those knees and feet? So that's the major concern that you're going to have with Joel Embiid. So I hope somebody, you mentioned the Sacramento Kings, champ. If I'm the 76ers, I try to trade him to the Western Conference, somewhere in the Western Conference, because I don't want to have to deal with him in the East. But the question is, where in the West do I put him? You mentioned Sacramento. Who else? Which team out there in the West is willing to take a shot at a Joel Embiid?
I think Sacramento is probably the only one that I could really, really think of at this moment. I mean, and they got something that you can give them, a big for a big. Granted, Sabonis plays power forward, but I mean, he's a double machine.
And
And I
plus, he
think,
helps out the passing and the playmaking for
yes,
Philly.
indeed. Yes, indeed. And I think with these young players, these young shooters that they have with Jared McCain and Tyrese Maxey, a lot of these other guys, I think that will basically help. That will help the team.
Especially for
Well,
Nick Nurse.
yes.
But also,
And
too. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, champ.
oh, it's okay. Yeah, that's probably the only team I can think of right now. When you really think about the rest, everybody's pretty much set. When you think about Oklahoma City, they're set.
Yeah.
They're set. They don't need another superstar. When you think about the Denver Nuggets, they're set. When you even think about the Los Angeles Lakers, they set. I mean, when you think about a lot of these Western Conference teams, they're pretty much they got it mapped tight. So the only team that I can really think of that they can ship him off to, get some decent value for him, is Sacramento. Like I said, get some bonus, team him up, because he doesn't have, from what I've seen, a lot of durability issues. He doesn't have a lot of durability issues. I mean, like I said, he set the record for double doubles. He's able to provide you rim protection and things like that, defensive rebounds, offensive rebounds, everything of that nature. So, hey, blow up the process. I mean, the process is over. The two biggest components of the process, one had Nick Anderson syndrome, that being Ben Simmons, because I don't think it was so much as the injury that hurt him. It was the
Mental.
mental. He didn't, and I hate using this phrase, Lord knows I do. He didn't have that dog in him anymore. It's just like he was just passive to a fault because he didn't want to go to the free throw line. And like I said, he turned into how Nick Anderson did after the 95 finals. It's just he did not want to go to the free throw line. Now you have Joel Embiid. The injuries have caught up with him. This is basically the Orlando Magic part 2. The only difference is both of their best players get hurt. They had all the potential in the world to be like Shaq and Penny, but the process repeated itself with Ben Simmons as far as the injuries goes, as far as the mental capacity to play the game goes, and their Shaquille O'Neal, that being Joel Embiid. I mean, he's nowhere near what Shaq is. So it's kind of like Orlando Part 2, but a lot more disastrous than Orlando was back when they had Shaq and Penny when that process finally ended.
Yeah.